1 second while I get everything sorted out here, straightened out here. All right. I put a video on my Facebook account and on my, well, I put a video that I copied and pasted from YouTube and put on my Facebook account that talked about things that were going on in Egypt in ancient times, I suppose you could say. One of the things that a lot of people are always asking and wondering about is how were those pyramids made and who made them? And of course, there are a lot of different ideas that people have. There are plenty of people who still hold to the idea that the Great Pyramid was created by the pharaoh Khufu, that the historian Herodotus refers to as Cheops, or Cheops, I guess is how the Greeks would pronounce that name. The way that Herodotus described it was that thousands of people, slaves, were pushed and grinded into a pulp. This took like decades in order for them to finally build and complete this great pyramid for Cheops, Khufu. And that has kind of been the standard understanding, the agreed upon viewpoint of how the pyramids were made, going for a very long time, because how else are those pyramids going to be made except by a lot of grueling work? Recently, of course, we've had people trying to demonstrate the different ways in which those pyramids could be created, what methods they used when they were needing to move blocks up from one level to the next. Were they using ramps? Were they using wind? Were they yanking things up in a certain fashion? And when it comes down to it, a lot of people are saying, we really don't know. We still really do not know how they did it. There is a misconception out there these days that once a technology is known and learned, that it is never forgotten. That remove that from your mind. That is not true. There are plenty of things that people create, that people have learned, that people have done that has not been passed down to posterity for one reason or another. The civilization that created it collapsed and no one was there to pick up the pieces and see what's going on. And a lot of the different ideas, of course, come down to not only when you look at these constructions and how old they are, do we really believe that the fourth dynasty of Egypt is actually the people who built these pyramids? Well, the Great Pyramid anyway. The others are supposedly done by the same dynasty as the fourth dynasty. One of the things, however, that a lot of people don't appreciate is there are a few things that are not so simply explained as the pharaohs of the fourth dynasty got a bunch of slaves and forced them all to work on this pyramid. There have been a lot of things that have been discovered over time. There is evidence, of course, that there's something that is underneath the pyramids, something that was built before the pyramids were built, or there was some tunnels created. And at the moment, we don't know what they are. There's been a lot of radar used and a lot of other different things in order to try and explain how these particular items were created. And when they use this radar on the pyramids and around there, they discovered that there were tunnels underneath them, and there was a bunch of weathering underneath at the base of these pyramids that really could only be explained by this actually being more of a rainforest area than a desert when these particular items were created. And if that's the case, of course, what should we glean from that? Well, we definitely know that there was no jungle or grassy no. There's no grassy areas. There's no jungle. There's no foliage. Evidence of that being anywhere around there during the time that the pyramids were uh, supposed to have been created. And there's, of course, a lot of people saying, okay, the only explanation for that is that there was something here before the pharaohs came. It's older than Egypt, it's older than the pharaohs, and someone older than the Egyptian culture actually created it. That, of course, will fly in the face of a lot of the people who know or think they know when civilization began. It began in the Mesopotamian area in the Middle East, and it began in Egypt, of course, not too long afterwards. Whether or not either of them had influence on the other, we're not sure. Both of them came up with writing systems, and some people pretty much point out that it's likely that the alphabet was invented once and everyone else picked up on it and did their own things with it over time. So what should we gather from a lot of this? One of the ideas, of course, was the ancient aliens idea that I don't ascribe to, but people really love to talk about it. But recently, there has actually been a supposed discovery that was made. Well, there was a discovery made, I'll say that, as to what it means. That's what's up to question. When a certain kind of technique similar to radar, I don't think it's ground penetrating radar, it's something else, it's a different technique, was used in the grounds around the pyramids. I think it's not the Great Pyramid. It was actually the second one. I can't remember the pharaoh that was attributed to. Not the Khufu one. We'll just put it that way. And what they found underneath there were big shaft type things, cylinder shaped shafts, and what they thought they saw beneath those cylinder shaft type things is evidence of there being some big city of some kind that was underneath all of that. One of the ideas, of course, a lot of people have was, well, that means that civilization is much older than we think it is, and therefore we shouldn't be surprised that we are going to go and find these kinds of things. There, on a little side note, there is an episode of Star Trek Voyager, where Voyager comes across this race. I can't remember their name. I thought I wrote it down somewhere, but let's see. Yeah, I didn't write it down. There's another race of aliens that actually originated on Earth and had to flee for some reason. I didn't see the whole episode, so I don't know the details. And of course, those people do not ascribe to that. They insist that this is the planet they started on, this is where they originated, and this is where they grew and became the mighty presence that they are. But then there's all of this evidence that indicates actually their planet of origin was the same planet of origin as humans. So could a race of really sophisticated aliens, really technologically savvy people have been here before us? Then they left millions of years ago, and then all these other things started happening here. Well, if I see the evidence of it, I'll believe it. But it does raise some interesting ideas about what exactly it is that these people think that they have found under the pyramids. And if there is an older civilization, what kind of things what kind of things did it create? What was it like? How was that built? There are a few people who have their podcasts and do their own little research who believe that they found the answer to this. One particular person with his podcast, he actually watched a video of the people at a seminar who were the basic promoters of this particular theory about a city underneath the pyramids. He says that the way they're describing it, this particular seminar that they did was done in Italian. The person who does this particular show that was talking about it, Italian is his native language, so he was able to watch it and explain to us what was going on there. He wasn't convinced by the evidence that was presented that this actually made sense. Then you go back to the idea of, well, what do you want them to find? Throughout history, a lot of times we find new technological things, we find new historical things archaeologically that people don't want to hear about because it conflicts with the beliefs, the religious beliefs that a certain group has. And so they're going to discard it. This broadcaster says, there is nothing I would like more than for this to be true. If this was true, this would be awesome. I would love it. I'd really like this to be true, but I'm going to be following the evidence. When you come across people who are telling you about debunking things, they will tell you, of course, that, okay, there's nothing I'd love more than to find these kinds of things, true examples of these sorts of structures, historical remnants. If they found them, it would be awesome, and we would be investigating them and finding everything we can about them. But right now, the evidence just isn't there to confirm that or deny it, I suppose, because it is very hard to prove a negative. We have proved absolutely there is no such thing as blah, blah, blah. That is very difficult to do when you are working on scientific things. We are finding out new things, new technological things, new kinds of ways of doing things all the time, and we are forgetting how to do a lot of them all the time, sadly. You can always hope that most of the knowledge that we gather is going to be staying with us here, with us today, and is not going to be going away. But I myself, when I first heard this, I thought, wow, this would be really cool if this was true. But being a folklorist, I can appreciate that I love this story. And so if I could come and create something that really was a good example of how this story could be true, how we can look at all of the evidence, what all the evidence is. I have not seen what they consider what all the evidence is. I'm just going to be talking about what was discussed here with this particular conference and with what people are saying about it. What do you think? How would you feel about preconceived ideas of yours being removed or being challenged because you suddenly discovered this? Is your attitude going to change? To many people, it won't change. I can understand that. If you have faith in something, if you're a religious person like me, faith is going to be holding a very strong component with what you are going to accept and what you're going to believe. One thing that you do is, yes, I have my faith and this is what I believe, but I will look at this evidence and look at it from the side and sort of keep that looking so that you can keep that going so that I can accept that maybe I was wrong about something and that I can change my mind. So that's probably everything that I'm going to be talking about today as it relates to ancient Egypt and the kinds of things that they have there. It would be really cool, really awesome if we could find new things, especially evidence of older civilizations the idea of the pyramid area being a jungle before it became the desert that it is, or a luscious field area, that would be really cool. And we will see where the evidence takes us. For now, that's all I'm going to be talking about. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. Till next time, I bid thee adieu when I have my next broadcast. Till then.